Hello everyone, I'm Ali Saadat. I'm passionate to creating products to deliver real value to your customers and users. In this video, I want to start new series of videos to learn React.js documents together and start learning and use React.js uh, in real workspace on VS Code. Let's go to the screen. Okay. In version 19 React.js, you can go to this page and start learn about version 19 React.js. In the first page, you can see React, the library for web and native user interface. Create user interface from components. React lets you build user interface out of individual pieces called components. Create your own React components like thumbnail, like button and video, then combine them into entire screen page and apps. React is a front-end framework to create interface for your users and customers. React is a framework of JavaScript language, and you can use on front-end web pages. Okay, whether you work on your own or with thousands of other developers using React feels the same. It's designed to let you seamlessly combine components written by independent people, teams, and organizations. Write components with code and markup. React components are JavaScript functions, but you show some content conditionally. Use an if statement displaying a list, trying array map. Learning React is learning programming. You can use this function on the React coding videos.lens. Okay, you can see you can define let, assignment, heading, empty heading if count is large than 0. You can const count larger than 1 videos, or video heading count plus a space plus none. Return section heading, and you can videos.map video component is creating on the web front-end web page. This markup syntax is called JS6. It's a JavaScript syntax extension popularized by React. Putting JS6 markup close to related rendering logic makes React components easy to create, maintain, and delete. Add interactivity whether you need it. React components receive data and return what should appear on the screen. You can pass them new data in response to an interaction, like when the user types into an input, React will then update the screen to match the new data. Okay, import use state. The first page of introduce React.js version 19, and doesn't matter about this refinement or other in the first page. and we can learn in document deeply. Okay, for learning React.js, you should know about JavaScript language and web frameworks and how to create elements on the on the web pages in front end. And you can start React.js as a course. Import database. Okay, async function, conference page, slug, await date.conf.find slug, return this component, sustain, fallback, talks loading. Okay. We can start to React learning. API reference doesn't matter. React learn React. In the first page, we can see learn React quit start. Welcome to React documentation. This page will give you an introduction to 80% of React concepts that you will use on daily basis. You will learn how to create and nest components, how to add markup and styles, how to display data, how to render conditions and lists, and how to respond to events and update the screen, how to share data between components. Okay, create a nesting component. We can learn some subject of React.js, and we can go in the next video. We can go to installation React.js on the real project. In the first video, I'll talk about React tutorial and React basis. Okay, create a nesting component. React apps are made out of component. A component is a piece of the UI user interface that has its own logic and appearance. The component can be as small as a button or as large as an entire page. React components are JavaScript function that return markup. Function my button. Return button, I'm a button. Okay, now that you declared my button, you can nest it into another component. Export default function app, my app, dive, create a dive, and h1, welcome to my app and my button. This is a JS6 component, and it's like HTML elements. For using JS6, you should learn, you should know about what is HTML and what is CSS and what is JavaScript language and how to render on the web pages. But I'm trying to talk about what is this and how to work to create an element on the web page. Notice that my button starts with a capital letter. That's how you know it's a React component. React component names must always start with a capital letter, while HTML tags must be lowercase. How look at the result? Function my button, return my button. Okay, export default function my app. App.js is a singular JavaScript file, and you can export default as a function for this file. App.js uh, is a main file or rendering in the web apps. Export default my app. Return dive how to welcome to my app. My button. Okay, it's render and preview is here. Show more. What is different? We don't have any difference. The export default keywords this is are explained in here. The export default keywords specify the main component in the file. If you're not familiar with some pieces of JavaScript syntax, MDN and javascript.info have a great reference. Writing markup with JS6. The markup syntax you've seen about is called JS6. It's optional, but most React projects use JS6 for its convenience. Convenience, what's meaning? In the Persian, my main language is Persian, and we can translate as a real time to talk about this subject. Confidence. Okay, I can understand what is convenience meaning. All of the tools are recommend for local development. Support JS6 out of the box. JS6 is stricter than stricter. What is the accent? Current stricter. Okay. This extension you can use. You can use this extension to translate as unknown. You can translate unknown meaning words of English or another language to your native language. You can install what's meaning, what's name of extension, what's name. Oh, okay. Make translate is a good extension, and you can install in your browser, Chrome browser or Edge browser or another browser you can use every time. Okay, let's go. Writing markup with JS6. I think its web pages is loading. Okay, you can learn about JavaScript. What is JavaScript and other refinement of MDN web document. MDN is owned by Mozilla browser, Mozilla company and browser, Mozilla browser is a product of Mozilla company. Okay, you can learn about what is some JavaScript language of this page. JavaScript.info is a useful web site to learn JavaScript. Okay, you can go to these web pages and learn about JavaScript. Okay, writing markup with JS6. The markup syntax you've seen above is called JS6. It's optional, but most React projects use JS6 for its convenience. All of the tools we recommend for local development support JS6 out of the box. JS6 is stricter than HTML. You have to close tags like BR. What is sign in English? Greater than and a slash? Okay, doesn't matter. Your component also can't return multiple JS6 tags. You have to wrap them into a shared parent, like div or an empty wrapper. Empty wrapper is a most usefully in React.js. Okay. Hello there. How do you do? If you have a lot of HTML of part to JSS, you can use the online converter. For example, in HTML, you can use class attributes on HTML element, but in the React.js, you should use the here is explained for this subject. You should use class name in the JS6, and you can't use a class attribute in HTML, and you should convert to class name. Class awesome, and here class name awesome, and style border 1 pixel solid red, and what's called in English? Okay, brackets. Okay, brackets. Brackets in React.js in JS6. Okay. If you have a lot of HTML to port to JS6, you can use online converter. Adding a style. In React, you specify a CSS class with class name. It works the same way as the HTML class attribute. Then you write the CSS roles for it in a separate CSS file. In your CSS avatar border radius 50%. React does not prescribe what's meaning? Excuse me for this break. Another break. Prescribe. Have you? Is it correct? My accent? Prescribe. It's okay. How you add a CSS file? In the simplest case, you'll add a link tag to your HTML if you use build tool or a framework. Consult its documentation to learn how to add a CSS file to your project. Displaying data. J6 lets you put markup into JavaScript. Curly braces let you. What is curly braces? If you don't know, you can search on the Google curly braces or brackets. 2-1 is okay. Curly braces. What's different? Brackets, curly braces. Oh, doesn't. Curly braces. The braces. Why should I say brackets? Braces. Okay. Excuse me. curly braces. We can add sound of Windows for you on OBS. Curly braces. For example, you should listen of this voice.
Curly braces.
Okay. I think you should listen of voice. We should learn together in this series of video, and I'm honestly with you, and doesn't matter and doesn't matter what people think about us, or we should learn together. Doesn't matter, and don't matter other people maybe judge me or you. We should learn together. Learning is an important subject for every people. Let's go. Excuse me for this break. Displaying data. You can also escape into JavaScript from JS6 attribute, but you have to use curly braces instead of quotes. For example, quotes. For example, class name avatar passes the avatar string as a CSS class, but src equally sign curly braces user dot image URL with JavaScript user dot image URL variable value, and then passes that value as the src attribute. You can put a more complex expression inside
expressions.
Expression inside the JavaScript curly braces too. For example, a string concatenation.
String concatenation.
Concatenation.
String concatenation.
I think this good accent. Okay, we can define const user equals sign curly braces name. What's meaning in English? Colon. My internet speed is low, and excuse me for this one.
Colon.
Const user, define const user equally in the sign, a curly braces name, colon, heading lammer.
Single quote.
Okay. Double quote and single quote. Image URL colon HTML URL image URL image size. Export defined profile return JS6 element h1 user dot name image attribute style with user dot image size height user dot image size. In the above example, a style is not a special syntax but a singular object. Inside the syntax JS6 curly braces, you can use the style attribute when your styles depends on JavaScript variables. Conditional rendering. In React, there is no special syntax for writing conditions. Instead, you'll use the same techniques as you use when writing regular JavaScript code. For example, you can use an if statement to conditionally include syntax JS6. You can define, you can write a code, user are login, user is logged in your web application or not, and define is logged in, logged in definement, and you can use on your code as a conditional rendering. Let content if is logged in, content admin panel component is show for your user or not, else content login for, and return div content on curly braces. If you prefer more compact code, you can use the conditional operator like if works inside JS6. Is logged in, admin panel, login for. Okay, you can write this code as a this code to shorter than of code. Compact code. More compact code, you can use conditional operator like this. Is logged in, admin panel or render or not, is render or not login for. And shorter than, you can write code like this. When you don't need the else branch, you can also use a shorter logical syntax. Logical syntax is and is logged in, admin panel, and you can write this code like this. For example, you can, why should is okay. We are read this document and then go to VS Code. All of those approaches also work for conditionally specifying attribute. If you're unfamiliar with some of these JavaScript syntax, you can start by always using if-else. Rendering list. You will rely on JavaScript feature like for loop or and the array map function to render list of components. For example, let's say you have an array of products. Relay are I don't know of many.
Rely.
You can define product like this, and you can define this refinement from the backend API and write a code to get data of backend or another APIs. Inside your component, use the map function to transform an array of products into an array of li item. List item products that map product li key product.id product.title. ID is is attribute of this object, and title is attribute of product object. For render this code, you can use a lot of packages for rendering data and clear your data and pass your data to front end. Doesn't matter. Let's go to main subject. Inside your component, use map function to transform an array of products into an array of li item. Okay, we are read. Notice how li has a key attribute. For each item in the list, you should pass a string or a number, then unequally identifies that item among its siblings is a good accent. Usually a key should be coming from your data, such as a database ID. React uses your keys to know what happened if you later insert, delete, or reorder the item. Okay, it's a sample code. Product is defined in here code and export default function shopping list. List item is equal product.map product li element and product title close li tag and return in the UL tag. Responding to event. You can respond to events by declaring declaring. I know of meaning, but I don't know what is good accent to use in communication. Declaring event handler functions inside your component. Function my button. You can function in a function is it good? Function handle click alert you clicked me. If you define this function in JavaScript, is a function is only defined into clear braces, and if you use handle click in another component, you can't access to this function, and you should declare again to use this function, and your code is larger than in your project. Doesn't matter. If you should know about this subject, and doesn't matter how to use this function in your code. Notice how onClick handle click has no parents at the end. Do not call the event handler function. You only need to pass it down. React will call your event handler when the user clicks the button. Updating the screen. Often you'll want your component to remember some information and display it. For example, maybe you want to count of number of items a button is clicked. To this, add a state to your component. Okay. First, introduce a state from React. You can define a state in React by some subject in React.js. For example, you can use a state in React and other libraries or packages. For example, Redux is a familiar uh, uh, care state in your project, but some project will need to this one, and some project doesn't need to this Redux package. And you know, and is and it's good to you know about this one. Doesn't matter. First import user state from React. Now you can declare a state variable inside your component. You will get, for example, const count, set count. Count and set count is a two function and use a state, and 0 for declare to declare in your project. Okay, in your function. You'll get two things from user state: the current state count, and the function that lets you update it, set count. You can give them any name, but the convention is to write something or set something. The first time the button is displayed, count will be 0 because you passed 0 to user state. When you want to change a state, call set count and pass new value to it. Clicking this button will increment the counter. Okay, set counts count increase one value in the state, and a page your render new. You can see is code are working here. Export default my app and render my button. For twist statement, count set state, user state, handle click plus one value, and button on click handle click count times. Okay, this code is a sample of using this code. Notice how each button remembers into own count state and doesn't affect other buttons. Using hooks, function starting with use are called hooks. User state is a built-in hook provided by React. You can find other built-in hooks in the API reference. You can also write your own hooks by combining the existing ones. Hooks are more restrictive than other functions. You can only call hooks at top of your component or other hooks. If you want to use user state in a conditional or a loop, extract a new component and put it there. Extract. Sharing data between components. In previous example, each button its own independent count, and when each button was clicked, only the count for the button clicked change. My app, my button counts 0, and when you click can't increase one value. However, often you'll need component to share data and always update together. To make both my button components display the same count and update together, you'll need to move the state from individual button upwards to closest component containing all of them. Individual.
Individual.
Individual. My accent is good. Is in here. In this example, it's my app. My button, when you is a good point. If you use set count on the function when you click every button, your state is increased. But when you use set count in your my button my button component, set count is called twice time, and when you use my button component you have a difference to a state in your page, and in here you are one state you have a one state in the web page. You should know the difference between here and there. Then pass the state down from my app to each button together with a shared click handler. You can pass information by my button using the JSX curly braces, just like previous did with built-in tag like image. Export default function my app uses state function handle click set count you are define one statement one time, first time, and you can call on click this function here. The information you pass down like this called props. Now the my app component contains the count state and handle click event handler. The passes both of them down as props to each of buttons. Finally change my button to read the props you have passed from its parent component. Count on click. Click count time. When you click the button, the onClick handler fires each button's onClick prop was set to the handle click function inside my app. So the code inside of it run that code called set count plus 1. Incrementing the count state variable. The new count value is passed as a prop of each button, so they all show the new value. This is called lifting state up. By moving state up, you've shared it between components. when you click on this button, two buttons are rendering again on your web page. Next step. This is the first web page of document. Okay. How much we should learn together and thinking in React. Okay, we can read together. Tutorial tic-tac-toe. Tutorial, what is
Tutorial.
tutorial? Is good. Well, you will build a small tic-tac-toe game during this tutorial. This tutorial does not assume any exciting React knowledge. The techniques you'll learn in the tutorials are fundamental to building any app in the React app. And finally, understanding it will give you a deep understanding of React. This tutorial is designed for people who prefer to learn by doing and want to quickly try making something tangible. If you prefer learning each concept step by step, start with describing by the UI. Okay, this subject for the next learning. The tutorial is divided into several sections. Set up for tutorial will give you a starting point to follow. Tutorial overview will teach you the fundamental of React components, props, and state. Completing the game will teach you the most common techniques in React development, and adding time trial will you a deep insight into unique strengths of React. Okay, step by step, we are learn together. What are you building? In the tutorial, you'll build an interactive tic-tac-toe game with React. You can see what it will look like when you're finished here. You can use a state from React function SQL value on square click button, click square on click on square click value. Function bird x is next on play. Function handle click I if calculate winner square equal is or sign square I. Return next square dot slice. If x is next square I is equal x, else x is square I or O, or next square on play. Winner calculate winner. Winner define. Let status, if winner status winner plus winner, else status next player plus x is next conditional operator x or O. Next player is rendering here, winner x. Winner O. Fourth row square one are rendered. Handle click 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and value square 6. This is a function of render page, and the logical of game right is here. And we should read this code step by step. History, set story, use state array none, fill null. Current move, set current move. X is next, current move, division sign to equal 0. Handle flare, next square, next history slash 0, current move plus 1. Set story, set current move. Function jump next move. This function calculate winner 102 345 6 7 8, or 0 0 3 6 0 3 6, or 1 per 7 2 5 8, or 0 1 2 3 4 5 0 5 8. and 2, 5, 6. These are all scenarios of the game. Calculate winner for let I are less than lines dot length I plus plus. Const ABC lines I if square A and square A is equal A square B and square C, or return the square A. The all condition is passed to return square A. In the other state, return null. This function can calculate winner, the return or rendering the web page, and handle play can set history.slice your current move. A square board has a function handle click and calculate winner square. Let's status if winner plus winner. Okay. I should read again this code again and again to understand of logical game. And we have we doesn't have time to read it step by step because learning need time to understand of logical game. The rendering code are here, and okay, doesn't matter. We can back. I can back in the after of time and learn again the logical of game, and now I can understand of logical game and how to work this code. This code have a simple code, but I can't understand now because I'm record the video and trying to speak by English, and my mind has a limited sources of process understanding process. If the code doesn't make sense of you yet, or if you are unfamiliar with the code syntax, don't worry. The goal of tutorial is to help you understand React and its syntax. We recommend that you check out the Tic-Tac-Toe game. Okay. This game are explained by React.js step by step. Okay, we can learn together, doesn't matter. If you code doesn't make sense of to you yet, or if you are unfamiliar with the code syntax, don't worry. The goal of the tutorial is to help you understand React and its syntax. We recommend you can check out of Tic-Tac-Toe Game above before containing with the tutorial. One of the features that you'll notice is that there is a numbered list of the right. Of the games bird, this list gives you a history of the movies that have occurred the game with what's meaning. What is the accent?
Occurred.
Occurred in the game, and it's updated as the game progress. Once you played around with the finished Tic-Tac-Toe game, keep scrolling. You'll start with simpler template into tutorial. When the next step is to set you up so that you can stop building the game. Setup for the tutorial. In the live code editor below, the fork of the top right corner to open the editor in a new tab using the website. Code sandbox. We can run this code in this web page. For example, setup for tutorial. The live code below, click in the top right corner to open the editor in a new tab using this website code sandbox. Code sandbox lets you write code in your browser and preview how to users will see the app you'll created. The new tab should display an empty square and starter code for this tutorial. Export default function is square button clicks square X button. You can also follow the tutorial using local development environment. To do this, you need to install Next.js. In Code Sandbox tab open earlier, press the top left corner button to open the menu and then choose Update Sandbox. Download Sandbox in that menu to download and archive of files locally. Unzip the archive, then open the tutorial cd to directory, open the terminal and write cd to the directory you zipped. Install the dependencies will install npm install, run npm start to start a local server and follow the prompts to new code running in browser. If you get stuck, don't let it stop you. follow blank new state. Well, we can open VS Code and create a project of Tic-Tac-Toe and write coding. We can create a folder and write Tic-Tac-Toe. Select folder. I've installed Node.js on my computer and I can copy, I can create app.js. Okay, I can using this code sandbox. I can download. Fork. Okay, I can fork this code and download the project and run on my local host. Like this note. I'm waiting to load my editor, loading editor. We are waiting. Okay. I need some water. Oh, coming back. Okay. Go to the game, start. Okay, this code is very, very good. React DOM, React script. It's a simple code of React.js. Download the file, the project, and how to download this project. Oh, open editor. Okay, I can download from here and I can export of this code here. And try to install React dependencies, new terminal. I can install npm install. How to work install React, the dependencies of this project will install from this attribute npm install. we should waiting to install this code. Now we can work in this editor. Editor is very good because we have a write coding. We can write coding here and use this preview in here. We have some CSS file and index.js strict mode app. Create a document.getElementById and says create from React client, React strict mode, and app.js. Why we should? New measure of new available. Install npm install install no stop yarn install what? Why? Yarn 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 install. Okay, the React installing by yarn package management. Okay, overview. Now that you are set up, let's get an overview of React. Inspecting the starter code. In code sandbox, you'll see three main sections. The file section with a list of files like app.js, index.js, style.js, and folder called public. Public has a simple HTML, HTML5 version, and the main div is here. Div ID. Div has a ID attribute, root, and React. Select get by ID root and render in this element the app. A stricter mode and app are rendering in this. We can inspect the editor doesn't have inspect from DevTool from preview. Okay, we can open DevTool by here and we can inspect by browser. They inspect for all web page and the inspect are created especially for these web pages. The editor is very good. And I congratulate for create this editor. The file section with a list of app.js, index, and style.js, okay. the code editor where you'll see the source code of your selected file, the browser section where you'll see how the code are written will display it. The app.js file should be selected in the file section. The content of that file in the code editor should be export default function square. The browser section should be displaying a square with the X in it like this. Now let's have a look at the files in the starter code. App.js, the code in app.js creates a component. In React, a component is a piece of reusable code. What's meaning? Reusable.
Reusable.
Reusable. Excuse me. Reusable code that represents a part of user interface. Components are used to render, manage, and update the UI element in your application. Let's look at the component line by line to see what's going on. Export default function square, return button class name square. The first line defines a function called square. The export JavaScript keyword makes this function accessible outside of the file. The default keyword tells other files using the code that it's the main function in your file. The second line returns a button. The return JavaScript keyword means whatever comes after is returned as a value to the color of the function button is a JS6 element. A JS6 element is a combination of JavaScript code and HTML. Tags that describes what you'd like to display class code square is a button property or prop that tells CSS how to style the button. X is the text displayed inside of the button, and button closes the JS6 element to indicate that any following content shouldn't be placed inside the button. Style.css. Click on the file labeled style.css is the file section of Code Sandbox. The file defines the styles for your React app. The first two CSS selectors, star and body, defines the style of large parts of your app, while the dot square selector defines the style of any components where the class name property is set to a square. In your code, that would match the button from your square component in the app.js file. Index.js. Click on the file label index.js as the file section of Code Sandbox. You wouldn't editing that this file during the tutorial, but it is a bridge between the component you created in app.js file and web browser. Line in 1 to 5 bring all of necessary pieces together. React library to talk to browser. React DOM, the styles from the component you created in app.js. The reminder of the file brings all pieces together and inject final product into index.html in public folder. Building the bird. Let's get back to app.js. This is where you'll spend the rest of the tutorial. Currently, the bird is only single square, but you need 9. If you just try and copy paste your square to make to a square like this, a square return button and return new button. Okay. You'll get this error. Excuse me. Excuse me for ringing my telephone. Okay, let's go to continue our video. React component need to read a single JSX element and not multiple adjustment. Adjustment. What is the accent? The whispered.
Adjacent.
Adjacent. Multiple adjacent JS6 elements like 2 buttons to fix this. You can use fragment opened and fragment closed to wrap multiple adjust. Excuse me, I've forgotten.
Adjacent.
Adjacent JS6 elements like this. For example, for using 2 button, you should fragment in start and close and end of element. Now you should see, so start great. Now you just need to copy paste a few times to add 9 square. Oh no, the square are all in the single one, not integrate like. You need for bird to fix this. You'll need to group your squares into rows with divs and add some CSS class. Will you are at it, you'll give each square a number to make sure you know where each square is displayed. In the app.js file, update the square component to look like this. 3 of component are repeated again and again. The CSS defined in style CSS style that dives with the class name of board row. Now that you've grouped your component into rows with styled dives, you have your tic-tac-toe bird. But have a problem. Your component name square really isn't a square anymore. Let's fix that by changing the name to bird. Okay. At this point, your code should look something like this. Okay. Past. What is the accent? doesn't mean.
Pust.
I think this is wonderfulling off. This is a wonderfulling off assignment. That's a lot of type. It's okay to copy and paste code from this page. However, you're up for a little challenge. We recommend only copying code that you've manually typed at least once yourself. Passing data through props. Next, you'll want to change the value of a square from mtx when the user click on a square with how you built the bird so far you would need to copy paste the code that updates the square 9 times, once for each square you have. Instead of copy pasting React component architecture allows you to create a reusable component to avoid messy duplicated code. First, you are going to copy the line defining your first square button from your bird component into new square component. When you'll update bird component to render square component use JS6 syntax. Note how unlike the browser types, your own component bird and square must start with a capital letter. Let's take a look. Oh no, you lost the numbered square you had before. Now each square says 1. To fix this, you will use props to pass the value each square should have from parent's component bird to its child square. Update the square component to read the value prop that you'll pass the bird. Function square value indicates the square component can be passed a prop called value. Now you want to display that value instead of 1 inside every square. Try doing it like this. Value from value. You wanted to render the JavaScript variable called value from your component, not word value. To escape into JavaScript from JSX, you need curly braces, add curly braces around value in JSX like this. For now, you should see an empty bird. This is because bird component hasn't passed the value prop to each square component it renders yet. To fix it, you'll add the value prop to each square component rendered by the bird component. Value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now you should see a grid of numbers again. Your updated code should look like. Okay, this is a view of your code. Making interactive component. Let's fill a square component with an X. When you click it, declare a function called handle click inside of a square. Then add onClick to the prop of button JS6 element returned from a square. For example, your button had a onClick property handle click. and you can define a function handle click console log clicked. If you click on a square now, you should see a log saying clicked in console tab at the bottom of the browser section in code sandbox. Clicking the square more. Okay. Clicked. We are reading. In the console tab, the bottom of the browser section in code sandbox. Clicking the square more once will look like clicked again, repeated console logs with same message. You don't message will not create more lines in console. Instead, you will see an incrementing center next to your first click log. If you are following this tutorial using your local development environment, you need to open your console browser. For example, if you use the Chrome browser, you can view the console with the keyboard short Shift K J, Shift K, Shift Control J. Okay, that's very good. This is a usefully shortcut. In the past, I'm open inspect by F11 or 12, F11. Button on your keyboard. As a next step, if you have a Mac OS, you can optional, I don't know what is this keyboard in the Mac OS. As a next step, you want to square component to remember that it's got clicked and fill it with an X mark to remember things. Components use state. React provides a special function use state that you can call from your component to let it remember things. Let's store the current value of the squaring state and changing it when the square is clicked. Import use state at the top of the file. Remove the value prop from the square component. Instead, add a new line at the start of the square that calls use state. You have it return a state variable called value. This text is explained about use state and how to use state. Value stores the value, and set value is function that can be used to change the value. The null pass to set the user state is used as the initial value for the state variable. So value here starts from equal to null. Since the square component no longer accepts props anymore, you'll remove the value prop for all 9 of square components created by bird component. Now you'll change square to display and X when clicked. Replace the console log event clicked click event handler with set value X. Now a square component looks like this. When you click handle X, handle click set value X in the state, and show the value. Okay, continue. By clicking this set function from an on-click handler, you're telling React to render the square whenever its button is clicked. After the update, the square's value will be x, so you'll see the x on the game board. Click on any square and x should show up. Each square has its own state. The value stored in each square is completely independent of the other when you call a set function in component. React automatically updates the child components inside too. After you've made the above change, your code will look like this. Button. Very good. React Developer Tools. React Developer Dev Tools let you check the props and the state of your React component. You can install React Developer Tools extension on your Chrome. You can find the React DevTools tab at the bottom of browser section in Code Sandbox. Okay. The GIF image is show the React DevTools for showing and how to use. You should extension of React DevTools. You can search in the Google and React Developer Tools, and you can install. For example, I should close this project. Doesn't matter. Okay. You can find developer tools. Where is that? The developer tools. Source. I can't find. Okay, we can find developer tools. Where is that? Okay. This is the developer tools of React bird function game, and you can find all. This is a props and what is the work of components. Okay, you can debug your code by this tool extension in your Chrome. They inspect a particular component on the screen. Use the button in the top left corner of React Dev Tools. For local development, React Dev Tools is available as Chrome and Firefox and Edge browser extension. Install it and component tab will appear your browser developer tools for sites using React. Completing the game. By the point, you have all the basic building blocks from Tic-Tac-Toe game. To have a complete game, you need to attribute placing X's and O's on the board, and you need a way to determine a winner. Determine
Determine.
lifting a state up. Currently, each square component maintains a part of the game's state. To check for a winner in a tic-tac-toe game, the bird would need to somehow know the state of each of 9 square components. How would you approach that? At first, you might guess that the bird needs to ask each square for that. A square's state, although this approach is technically possible in React, discourage it because the code becomes difficult to understand.
Susceptible.
Susceptible to bugs and hard to refactor. Instead, best approach is to store the game's state in the parent bird component instead of each square. The bird component can tell each square what to display by passing a prop like did when you pass a number to each square. To collect data from multiple children or have two child components communicate with each other, declare the shared state in their parent component instead. The parent component can pass that state back down to the children via props. This keeps the child components in sync with each other and with their parent. Lifting a state into a parent component is common when React components are refactored. Let's take this opportunity to try it out. Edit the bird component so that it declares a state variable named square that defaults an array of 9 nulls corresponding to 9 squares. Array 9 dot fill null. Array 9 dot fill null creates an array with the 9 elements and set each of to null the user state call around in declare a square state variable that initially set to that array. Each entry in array corresponding to
Corresponds.
value of square. When you fill the bird and later the a square array will look like this. Okay, that's really, really good idea. When you click a button, you can set a square on this array. Very good. Now your board component needs to pass the value prop down to each square that renders. Next, you'll edit the square components to receive the value prop from board component. This will require removing the square components on stateful tracking of value. And buttons click on click prop. A square value return. At this point, you should see an empty tic-tac-toe board and click. Doesn't work. A square is one value and doesn't logical. Each square will now receive a value prop that will either be X or O or null for empty squares. Now, next, you need to change what happens when a square is clicked. The bird component now maintains which squares are filled. You'll need to create a way for a square to update the bird's state. Since state is private to a component that defines it, you cannot update the bird's state directly from square. Instead, you'll pass down a function from the bird component to the square components, and you'll have a square call that function when a square is clicked. You'll start with the function that a square component will call when it's clicked. You'll call that function on a square clicked. Okay, very, very good idea. Next, you'll add the onClick square function to square components props. On a square click, now you'll connect the onClick square prop to a function in the bird component that you'll name handle click to connect on a square click to handle click. You'll pass a function to on square prop of the first square component. Lastly, you will define the handle click function inside the bird component to update the squares array holding your bird state. Okay, what's doing? Set a square, handle. The handle click function creates a copy of a square's array next a square. with the JavaScript slice array method. What is the JavaScript slice method? I've forgotten this function. Ref insert returns a shadow copy. Yeah, and animal.slice to new array object selected from start to end, not included. When start and end represented 1 to 5, -2, 2, and -1. Camel and dog, camel, duck, elephant, bison, bison, camel, duck, elephant, duck. The copy of array. When you squares, set a square, okay, I think this code will replace by index. Slide array method, then handle click updates the next square array to add x to the first 0 index square. Calling the set square function, let's react now to a set of components has changed. This will trigger a re-render of components that use the square state bird, as well as its child's component, the square components like makeup, the bird. JavaScript supports closures, which means an inner function, example handle click, has access to variables and functions defined in the outer functions bird. The handle click function can read a square state and call set square method because they are both defined inside the bird function. Closure, in the past I explained about this in the first video, this video. Next, you will need to pass that I to handle click. You could try to set on a square click, prop of a square to handle click 0 directly the JS like this, but this wouldn't work. Here is why it doesn't work. The handle click 0 call be part of the rendering the bird component because click handle click alters the state of bird component by calling set square. The entire bird component will be re-rendered again, but this runs handle click 0 again, leading to an infinite loop. Why didn't this problem happen earlier? When we're passing on a square handle click, you were passing the handle click function down as a prop. You were not calling it. Now you are calling that function right away. Notice that parent is in the handle click 0, and it's why it runs too early. You don't want to call handle click until the user click. To clock fix, you could fix this by creating a function like handle first square click that calls handle click 0. Okay, a function like handle second square that calls handle click 1, so and so on. You would pass rather than call this function down as props like on a square click handle first square click. This would solve the infinite loop. However, defining different functions and giving each of them a name is too verbose. Instead, let's do this. On a square click, a callback function right by this. Notice a new syntax here. Handle click 0 is an arrow function, which is a shorter way to define functions when the square is clicked. The code after arrow will run calling handle click 0. Now you need to update the other 8 squares to call handle click from arrow functions you pass. Make sure that argument for each call of handle click corresponds the index of current square.
Corresponds.
Okay, very good. Now you can again an X to any square on board by clicking on them. But this time, all state management is handled bird component. This is what code should like this. Okay. We can see all your code. Handle click, square signs. Okay, very good. Now, this is state handling board component. The parent board component passes props to the when handle click. Okay, we can continue the video. Parents word component passes props to the child square components so that they can be displayed currently. When clicking on a square, the child square component now asks the parent bird component to update the state of bird. When bird's state changes both the bird component and every child square re-render automatically, keeping the state of all squares in bird component will allow it to determine the winner in the future. Let's recap what happened when a user clicks the top left square on bird to add an X to it. Clicking on the upper left square runs the function that the buttons received as its on-click prop from the square dot. The square component received that function as its on-square click prop from the bird. The bird component defined that functions directly in JS6. It calls handle click with an argument of 0. Handle click uses an argument 0 update the first element of a squares array from null to x. The squares state of bird component was updated, so the bird and all of its children re-render these cases the value prop of the square component with index 0 to change from null to x. In the end, the user sees that the upper left squares has changed from empty to having a x after clicking it. The down button element's on-click attribute has a special meaning to React because it is a built-in component. For custom components like a square, the naming is up to you. You could give any name to the squares on a square click prop or board's handle click function, and the code would work the same. In React, it's conventional to use on something names from props which represent events and handle something for the function definitions which handle those events. Why immediately is important?
Immutability.
Immutability. Note how in handle click you call dot slice to create a copy of the square array instead of modifying the exciting array to explain why. We need to discuss immutability, and why immutability is important to learn. There are Generally, two approaches to changing data. The first approach is to mutate the data by directly changing the data's values. The second approach is to replace the data with a new copy which has the desired changes. Here is what it would like if you mutated the squares array. Here is what would like if you change data without mutating the squares array. The result is the same, but not mutating, changing the underlying data directly. You gain several benefits. Immutability makes complex features much easier to implement. Later in the tutorial, you will implement a time travel feature that lets you review the game's history and jump back to past moves. In functionality isn't specific to games and ability to undo and redo certain action in command requirement for apps. Avoiding direct data mutations lets to keep previous version of data in fact and reviews data later. It's also There is also another benefit of immutability by default. All child components re-render automatically when a state of parent component changes of a parent component change is included in the child component that's variant affected by the change. Although rendering is not by itself noticeable to user, you shouldn't actively try to avoid it. You might want to skip re-rendering a part of the tree that clearly wasn't affected by it for performance reasons. Immutability makes it very cheap for companies to compare whether tree data has changed or not. You can learn more about how React chooses when they re-render a component in Memo API reference. Okay, taking trends. It's now time to fix a major defect in Tic-Tac-Toe Game. The O's cannot be marked on the board. You'll set the first move to be X by default. Let's keep track of this by adding another piece of state that board component. X is next, set X is next. Use true by default. Each time a player moves x is next, a boolean will be flipped to determine which player goes next, and the game's state will be saved. We'll update the board's handle click function to flip the value of x next. X is next. When you click a button, function slice x is next, share is I or O. The negative, set negative, x is next. Now, as you click on different squares, we will alternate between x and O as they should. But wait, there is a problem. Try clicking on the same square multiple times. The x is overwritten by O. Okay. The x is overwritten by O. This would add a very interesting twist to game. We're going to stick to original rules for now. When you mark a square with the x or O, you aren't first changing to see if your square already has an x or O value. You can fix this by returning early. You check to see if the square already has an x or an O. If the square is already filled, you will return the handle click function early before it tries to update the board state. Now you can only add x's or o's to empty squares. Here's what your code should look like at the point. Okay, very good. Our game is not clickable again. Okay. Declaring a winner. Now that players can take turns, you'll want to show when the game is won and there are no more turns to make. To do this, we'll add a helper function called calculate winner that takes an array of 9 squares check with a winner and returns x or O or null as appreciate. Don't worry too much about the calculate winner function. It's not specific to React. Calculate winner squares. Lines are defined and this function check from 0 to lines length ABC in line I. This is a separated squares A squares A, for example, x and x is equal x and x is equal x. Okay. It doesn't matter whether you define calculate winner before or after the bird. Let's put it at the end so that don't have to scroll past it every time you edit your component. You will call calculate winner squares in the bird component's handle click function to check if a player has won. You can perform this check at the same time you check if a user has clicked a square that already has X or O. We'd like to return early in both cases. Calculate winner. In handle click, squares I or calculate winner squares return to let the player know when the game is over. You can display text such as winner X or winner O. To do that, you will add the states section to the bird component. The status will display the winner. If the game is over and if the game is ongoing, you'll display which player's turn is next. Calculate winner. Let status if winner status winner plus winner status next player plus X is next. Question operator.
Question mark.
Question mark. Okay, if calculate squares, why we should squares, okay. In the board, you can set a status winner, X is next, is through X or O. Congratulations, you now have a working tic-tac-toe game and you've just learned the basics of React 2. So you are the real winner. Here is what the code should look like. Now I can understand the all logical of this game. And this is a very good journey for me. Adding time travel, we can X winner, and we cannot continue the game. Doesn't matter. As a final experience, as a final exercise, let's make it possible to go back in time, previous moves to game. Sorting of hierarchy of moves. If we motivated the squares array independent, implementing time travel would be difficult. However, you use a slice to create a new copy of a squares array after every move. They treat it as immutable. Immutable.
Immutable.
And
Treated.
treated. Store every past version of squares. Navigate between turns. You have already happened. You will store the past squares array in another array called history, which you'll store as a new state variable. The history array represents all bird states from the first to last move and has a shape like this, lifting a state up again. You will now write a new top-level component called game to display a list of past moves. That's where you will place the history state that contains the entire game history. Placing the history state into the game component will let you remove the squares state from its child bird component, just like you lift state up from the square component into the bird component. You will now lifted it up from the bird into the top level game component. This gives the game component full control over the bird's data, and it instructs the bird to render previous turns from the history. First, adding a game component with export default, have it render the bird component and some markup. OL, note that you're removing export default keywords from function bird dictionaries and adding them before function game. Declaration to tell index.js from all to use a game component as top level component instead of your bird component. The additional div returned by the game component are making room from game information you'll add to the bird later. Add some state to the game component to track which player is next and history of moves. Notice have array notice have array 9 dot fill null is an array with a single item, which itself is an array of 9 nulls. To render the squares for the current moves, you will want to read the last squares array from the history. You don't need user state for this. You already have enough information to calculate it during rendering. Next, creating a handle play function inside the game component that will be called by bird component to update the game. Pass x is next, current squares and handle play. As props to bird component. It's make current squares history.length 1.
Dash.
Dash. That's not current accent. This is negative bound. Let's make the bird component fully controlled by props. It's received changing the bird component to take 3 props x is next squared and a new onPlay function that bird can call with the updated squares array when a player makes a move. Next, remove the first 2 lines of bird function that all use a state. Okay. Handle. Now replace the set square and set x next calls in handle click in bird component with a single call to your new onPlay function, so the game component can update the bird when the user click a square. The bird component is fully controlled by the props passed to it by the game component. You need to implement the handle play function in the game component to get the game working again. What should handle play do when called? Remember that bird used to call set square with the updated array. Now it's passed the updated square array to onPlay. The handle play function need to update game's state to trigger a re-render, but you don't have a set square function that you can call anymore. You're new using the history state variable to store this information. You'll want to update history by appending the update squares array as a new history entry. You also want to toggle x is next, just as bird used to do. Next squares history. Here, history next squares creates a new array that contains all items history followed by next squares. You can read separate syntax, enumerate all items in history. For example,
Enumerate.
if history has a null and next is then a new array will, okay. At the point you've moved a state to live, the game component and the UI should be fully working just as it was before the refactor will is what code should look like point. On play, showing the past moves. Since you are recording the Tic-Tac-Toe game's history, you can now display a list of past moves to the player. React elements like button are regular JavaScript objects. You can pass them around your application to render multiple items in React. You can use an array of React element. You already have an array of history moves in a state. So now you need to transform it to an array of React elements. In JavaScript, to transfer an array into another, you can use the array map method. You'll use map to transform your history of moves into React element representing buttons on a screen. On display, a list of buttons jumped to past moves. Let's map over the history in the game component. Function jump to none. Let description move more than 0. Go to hashtag plus move. excuse me. Okay. It moves off by li button. Jump to move. You can see what your code should look like below. Not that you should see an error in the developer tools console that says warning each child in array of iterator should have a unique kprop like render method of game. You'll fix error in the next section. I think we should add a key in li tag or button tag by key attribute. As you iterate through history, as you iterate through history array inside the function you pass to move, the squares arguments goes through each element of history and move argument goes through each array index 0, 1, 2. In most cases, you need to actual array elements, but to render a list of moves, you will only need indexes. For each move in Tic-Tac-Toe Game's history, you create a list item li, which contains a button. The button tag. The button has an on-click handler, which calls a function jump to that you haven't implemented yet. For now, you should see a list of moves that or create the game
occurred
in the game and an error in the developer tools console that discusses what the key error means. Picking a key when you render a list, React stores some information about each rendered list item. When you update a list, React needs to determine what has changed. You could have add, removed, argument, or updated items, list items, image transaction, imagine transitions from Alexa task left bin 5 task to Claudia 8 task left. In addition to updated count, a human rendering this would probably say that you swapped Alexa and Ben's ordering and inserted closure between Alexa and Ben. However, React a computer program and does not know what you intend. So you need to specify a key property for each list item to differentiate each list item from its siblings. If your data was from a database, Alexa, bin, and Clojuria's database IDs could be used as keys. When a list is re-rendered, React taken each list item's key and search the previous list items for a matching key if the current list has a key that didn't exist before. React creates a component. If the current list is missing a key that existed the previous list, React destroys the previous component. If two keys match, the corresponding component is moved. I'm very tiring
Corresponding.
of recording this video. Keys tell React about the identity of each component, which allows React to maintain a state between re-renders if a component's key changes. The component will be destroyed and recreating with the new state. Key is a special and reserved property in React. When an element is React extracts the key property and stores the key directly on returned element. Even true key may look like it's passed as props. React automatically use key to decide which components to update. There is no way for component to ask what key its parent specified. It's strongly recommended that you assign proper keys whenever you build dynamic list. If you don't have any appropriate key, you may want to consider restructuring your data so that you do. If no key is specified, React will report an error and use the array index as a key by default. Using the array index as a key is problematic when trying to reorder list items or removing list items. Explicitly passing key index key silences the error but has the same problem as array indicates and not recommended in most cases. Keys do not need to be globally unique. They only need to be unique between components and their sublinks. Implemented time travel. In the Tic-Tac-Toe game's history, each past movie has a unique ID associated with it. It's this sequential number of the moves will never be deleted or inserted in the middle, so it's safe to use the move index as a key. In the game function, you can add the key as lik move. If you reload the rendered game, React key error should disappear. Jump to move. Okay, it's printed in here. We can see this code in here. Before you can implement jump to, you need to game component to keep track of which step the user is currently viewing. To do this, define a new state variable called current move. Define defaulting to 0. Next, update to jump function inside game to update that current move. You'll also set x is next to true if the number that's your changing current move to is even. Current move. Current move 0. Oh, that's pretty good and a smart way. You can calculate of this one and set true or false for set x is next. From next move, you will now make to change to games handle play function, which is called when you click on a square. If you go back in time and then make a move from that point, you only want to keep the history up to that point. Instead of adding next square after all times, separate syntax. In history, you'll add it after all items history slice 0, current move plus 1. So that you're only keeping that portion of the old history portion. Each time a move is made, you need to update current move to point to the last history entirely. What is the next story? Separate a slice 0 current plus next square. Next history length okay, history. Finally, you will modify the game component to render currently selected move instead of always rendering the final move. Current square history, current move. If you click on any step in the game's history, the tic-tac-toe bird should immediately update to show what the bird looked like after that step occurred. Okay, next step always updated by this code by If you click on any step in the game history, the tactical bird should be immediately updated to show what the bird looked like after that step occurred. When you click on the cleanup. If you look at the code very closely, you may notice that it's not true when current move is even and x is not false when current move is old. In other words, if you know the value of current move, then you can also always figure out what x is not x should be. There is no reason for you to stir both of these instead. In fact, always try to avoid redundant state. Simplifying what your store in state reduces bugs and makes your code easier to understand. Change game so that it doesn't store x is next as a separate state variable and instead figures is out based on the current move. You no longer need x is next state declaration or the calls to set x is next when no chance for x is next to get out sync with current move. If you make a mistake while coding the components. Wrapping up. Congratulations, you created Tic-Tac-Toe game that lets you play tic-tac-toe, indicates when a player has owned the game, stores a game history as a game progresses, all allows players to review game histories that and see previous version of games bird. Nice work. We hope you now feel like you have a decent grasp of how React works. Check out the final result here. If you have an extra time or want to practice your new React skill, here you are some ideas to improvement that could make Tic-Tac-Toe game listed order of difficulty. For current move only show you are at move instead of button. Rewrite board to use tool loop to make a square instead of hard coding them. Add a toggle button that lets you sort the moves in their ascending and descending order. When someone wins, highlight the three squares that caused the win, and when no one wins, display a message about result being a draw. Display the location for each move, the format roll call in move history list. Throughout this tutorial, you've touched on React concept including elements, components, props, and state. Now that you've seen how these concepts work when building a game, check out Thinking in React to see how the same React concept work when building an app UI. We can run npm run. Yeah, or npm start. We can access this project on the browser. Yes. Starting the development server. I think I should disable my VPN. I don't know why we shouldn't access to our project. We can a new into window. I don't know why we shouldn't. Why we can not. We couldn't access. Open. Okay. Your project or project is working. We can move to other. Okay. Very good. And the last page of Quick Start, we can read this page. Thinking in React. React can change how you. I need some water. React can change how you think about the designs you look at and the apps you build. When you build a user interface with React, you will first break it apart into pieces called components. Then you will describe the different visual states for each of your components. Finally, you will connect your components together so that the data flows through them. In this tutorial, we'll guide you through the thought process of building searchable product data table and React. Start with a mockup. Imagine that you already have a JSON API and mockup from a designer. A JSON API returns some data that looks like this: category, price, stacked, and named. The mockup looks like this. The implemented UI in React, you will usually follow the same 5 steps. Break the UI into a component hierarchy. Start drawing boxes around every component and subcomponent in the mockup, and naming them if you work with the designer. They may have already named these components in their design tool. Ask them. Depending on your background, you can think about splitting up a design into components in different ways. Programming. Use the same techniques for dedicating if you should create a new function or object. One such technique is the single responsibility principle. That is, a component should ideally only do one thing. If it ends up growing, it should be decomposed into smaller subcomponents. CSS. Consider what you should make class selectors for. However, components are a bit less granular. Design. Consider how you would organize the design layer. If your JSON is well structured, you'll often find that it naturally maps to the component structure of your UI. That's because UI and data models often have the same information architecture, that is, the same shape. Separate your UI into components where each component matches one piece of your data model. There are 5 components on this screen. Filterable product table. Gray contains entire app. Search bar blue receives the user input. Product table. Lavender displays and filters the list by curating to user input. Product category row, green, displays a heading for each category. Product row, yellow, displays a row for each product. If you look at product table Blender, you'll see what the table header containing the name and price labels isn't its own components. This is a matter of preference, and you could go either way. For this example, it is a part of product table because it appears inside the product tables list. However, if this header grows too complex, if you add this sorting, you can move it into its own product table header component. Now that you've identified the components into in the markup, arrange them into a hierarchy. Components that appear within another component in the mockup should appear as a child in the hierarchy. Build a static version in React. Now that you have your component hierarchy, it's time to implement your app. The most straightforward approach is to build a version that renders the UI from your data models without adding any interactivity. Yet, it's often easier to build a static version first and add in interactivity later. Building a static version requires a lot of typing and no thinking. But adding interactivity squares a lot of thinking and not a lot of typing. To build a static version of your app that renders your data models, you want to build components that reuse other components and pass data using props. Props are a way of passing data from parent to child. If you're familiar with the concept of state, wouldn't use state at all to build this static version. Static is reserved only for interactivity, that is, data that changes over time. Since this is a static version of your app, you wouldn't need it. You can either build top-down by starting with building the components higher up in hierarchy, like filterable product table, or bottom-up by working from components lower down, like product row. In similar example, it's usually easier to go top down, and on larger project it's easier to go bottom down. For example, this code is like this: category, product row, return, product table, product filter each, product category, last category, row.push, row.push, product row. Okay, if this code looks intimidating, go through quick start first. After, what's meaning?
intimidating,
After building your component, you'll have a library of reusable components that render your data model, because this is a static app. The components will only retain JS6. The component at the top of the hierarchy filterable product table will take your data model as a prop. This is called one-way data follow because the data follows down from the top level component to the owns at the bottom of the tree. At this point, you should not be using any state values. That's for the next step. Step 3. Find the minimal but complete representation of the UI state. To make the UI interface, you need to let user change your underlying data model. You will use a state for this. Think of a state as the minimal set of changing data that your app needs to remember. The most important participate principle for structuring state is to keep it dry. Don't repeat yourself. Figure out the obsolete minimal representation of the state your application needs and compute everything else on demand. For example, if you're building a shopping list, you can store the items as an array in a state. If you want to also display the number of items in the list, don't store number of items as another state value. Instead, read the length of your array. Now, think of all the pieces of data in this example application. The original list of products, the search text the user has entered, the value of checkbox, the filtered of list product. Which of these tests state? Identify the ones that are not. Does it remain uncharged over time? If so, it isn't a state. Is it passed in from a parent via props? If so, it isn't a state. Can you compute it based on exciting a state or props in your component? If so, it definitely isn't state. What's left in probably state? Let's go through them one by one again. The original list of products is passed in as prop, so it's not a state. The search text seems to be a state since it changes over time and can't be computed from an entity. The value of checkbox seems to be a state since it changes over time and cannot be computed from anything. The filtered list of products isn't a state because it cannot be computed by taking the original list of products and filtering it according to the search text and value of the checkbox. This means only the search text and the value of the checkbox are a state. Nicely done. Identify where your state should live. After identifying your app's minimal state data, you need to identify which component is responsible for changing this state or owns the state. Remember, React uses one-way data follows, passing data down the component hierarchy from parents to child component. It may not be immediately clear which component should own what state. This can be challenging if you're new to this concept, but you can figure it out by following this step. For each pieces of a state in your application, identify every component that renders something based on that state. Find their common parents component, components about them all in the hierarchy. Decide whether the state should lie. Often you can put the state directly into their common parent. You can also put the state into some component about their common parent. If you cannot find the component where it makes sense to own the state, create a new component solely for holding the state and add it somewhere in hierarchy about the common parent component. In previous step, you found two pieces of state in this application: the search input text and the value of checkbox. This is an example. A checkbox. This is an example. They always appear together, so it makes sense to put them into the same place. Now let's run through our strategy for them. Identify components that use state. Product table needs to filter the product list based on the state, search text, and checkbox value. Search bar needs to display that state, search text, and checkbox value. Filter their common parents. The first parents component bus components share is filterable product table. Decide where the state lives. We'll keep the filtered text and checked state values in filterable product tables. So the state values will live in filterable product table. Add a state to be component with its use state hook. Hook are special functions that let you hook into React. Add two state variable at top of the filterable table and specify their initial state. Filterable text and static only, filterable text. Okay. You can start seeing how your application will behave. Edit the filter text initial value for user state to user state fruit. In sandbox code below, you'll see both the search into input text and table update. Okay, so data start. Notice that editing the form doesn't work yet. There is a console error in Sandbox about explaining why. Provide the value prop from field on change handler. This will render read-only field. In the Sandbox below product table and search bar, read the filter text and in stock only props to render the table. The input and the checkbox, for example, here is how search bar populates the input value. However, you haven't added any code to respond to the user action like typing yet. This will be your final step. Step 5. Add inverse data flow. Currently, your app renders with props and state flowing down the hierarchy. But to change the state according to user input, you will need to support data flowing the other way. The firm components deep in the hierarchy need to update the state in filterable product table. React makes this data flow explicit, but it requires a little more typing than two-way data binding. If you try to type or check the box in the example above, you'll see that React ignores your input. This is intentional by writing input value filter text. You set the value prop of the input to always to equals to the filter text state passed in from filterable product table, since filter text state is never set. The input never change. You want to make it so whenever the user change from the form input, the input updates to reflect to change, the state is owned by filterable product table. So only it can call set filter text and set in stack only. To let search bar update filterable product tables state, you need to pass this function down to search bar. Okay. Inside search bar, you will add the onChange event handlers and set parent state from there. Function, search bar, and return forms, input label, onChange on, and until target checked. Okay. Now the application fully works. Why we shouldn't? However, stay village connection with the sandbox Monday. Make sure online terrain. Okay. You can learn all about handling events, adding interactivity where go from here. This very brief introduction how to think about building components and application React with React. You can start React project right now and dive deeper on all syntax used in tutorial. To reset, we can work. The React document is a very good learning source to learn step by step. I think you don't need any course of learn React.js. And the best source is document React. I don't know why. We are waiting the load code sandbox. My proxy is off, and I can set on proxy on my internet. We are waiting to load this web page and test this React page document. In the next video, we can go to the installation section and learn about this section, and other videos we can learn step by step the old document of React.js. I hope to useful for you. Okay, you can see this project. I check on Apple. Okay, this is very good. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to useful for you. Goodbye until the next later. Goodbye.